Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hello. How is everybody today? Great to see. Yes. Great to see everybody. I'm very much looking forward to today's conversation with Rory. And we will answer a lot of these mysteries of some of the pictures that I put up. Hello, Paula. How are you? You hear me okay? Give me some hearts. Give me some hearts. Hello, Barbara. Hello. Great, 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 great. That's good to see and good to hear. Waiting for Rory. So I think a couple of I'm looking at you guys. Bored, yes. People are bored. That's tough. Yeah, hopefully we can alleviate some of the boredom for at least an hour. Hello, Ryan. Hello, Ryan Rosegarten. Tell your father to request to go live. Great. Hello, Dave. Hello, Dave Srock. Hello from Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Always great to see. Yes, yes, yes. Hello. Yeah, ready for some cooler weather? Okay, Trish. Ready for this. Sloanster, highlight of your weekend. Toronto, hello. Carlos, hello. Can you get a reboot? It's going to be a tough one. It will definitely be a tough one. Yes. Hello. Oh, good to see everybody. Hello, Sydney, Australia. Is it Liana? Liana in Sydney, Australia. I think it's early morning for you in Australia, I believe. So once Rory joins us, we'll really get into the details of that. I posted that David Letterman photo. And let's see. Here's Rory. So I posted that. Oh, there he is. There.
Look at that.
Hold on, Rory. Hold on. Rory, hold on.
All right, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, it's Rory, good to see you. Hold on. I'm just going to lower my camera a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to do that too.
All right. Good. Oh, Rory, looking good, looking healthy. Here we go. Is it dark there? It's dark. Is it dark?
Yes, it's New York, and it's nighttime.
I guess so. So, Rory.
Yes, sir.
Rory, you're going to have to come on multiple times because there's too much information to share in one session. Okay.
Well, we'll see how this goes, and then I'll decide.
No, you have to agree up front. So
Okay.
someone's asking. So here's the thing, Rory.
Yes.
Thanks for coming on. We'll get into stories, but then also I like to answer questions as they scroll, so it can be a little bit, disjointed as we get interrupted.
Okay.
So here we go. Yeah, because yes, Rory's in New York, and it is dark already. Yes. Hello, Barbara, who's from New York. Yeah. Now, Rory, I don't know if you can read any of the comments, but if not, doesn't matter.
I can read them.
Yeah. So we have, I'm waving to people here. In general, Rory, because we're going to go back. Right now, because of Instagram, you're talking to people in Chechnya, Australia, England.
Do I need a passport for this conversation?
Save it for the stage, Rory.
Yeah, right.
So I think the beauty of this is, Rory, as you know, when especially you in the trenches at the beginning, who's watching anything? And now, cut to 25 years later, you're watched around the world. These are really true fans. You cannot bore them with the little minutia. And so it's the beauty of the internet that you can be sitting in your cozy Long Island house while it's dark and regale us with some of your stories. So
if they want to hear it, I'll tell them what I know.
Well, what I've tried to do, Rory, in doing this site is just, it takes 130 people to make a show. And I think originally people, you know, they say, well, just put another show on the air, just put a spinoff on the air. Why doesn't Ray just do another sitcom? Why, you know, the amount of work, the amount of a chess match to get a show on the air, period, is astronomical. So I want to go back, Rory. Let's just talk about you meeting Ray initially.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting Ray. I was a judge on the K-Rock comedy competition. I was a manager in New York, and I was asked to be a judge, and I said I would. And Ray was one of the competitors. K-Rock was a radio station.
Okay, great.
I got that, Tom. I figured that. Okay, so K-Rock was a radio station, and they asked me to be one of the judges, which I said I would do. And I saw Ray perform in one of the early rounds, and I fell in love with him. Honestly, I thought he was really funny, really different. I ran backstage. I said, look, regardless of what happens, I don't win or lose, I want to work with you. I mean, I made this snap decision right then and there. And we've been together for 38 years.
But you were already managing comedians. So
yes,
you
at that time. Yeah, at that time I managed Robert Klein and Brian Regan and Joe Bolster and Alan Combs, the former host on WNBC, and then ABC, and then ultimately Fox with Sean Hannity.
So, and just for people that don't know, who are somewhat younger than us, Robert Klein is a stand-up comedy legend. So if you listen to Seinfeld, one of the guys that he holds up on the altar is Robert Klein.
Yes.
So Rory's already managing Robert Klein. So Rory's not someone who's going, hey, Ray, I bet you I could manage comedians as soon as I'm done with this day job packing boxes.
Well, what had happened is Robert, I've been with Robert. Robert's going to be 79 February 8th. So I've been with him since he was 39. We've been together 40 years. And it was a hell of a calling card to have, because if you had someone like that, it sort of established you as someone who could do the job. Whether I could do the job or not, I don't know. But at least I could fool some of the people all of the time, and Ray was one of them. Yeah.
Great. And I mean, it's important to note, because now Ray is a big star, but then he's one of hundreds and hundreds of stand-up comedians in the New York scene who might make it, might not make it. He might go to his day job in a year.
Well, it's funny. One of the club owners called Ray a mortgage comic. He only saw him from his back when he was running out the door to another club to make $50. He didn't know if he would make it or not. He had not done any late night television yet. He was working very hard. He had dedicated basically all of his time now to be a full-time comedian. He had 3 kids and his wife. They lived in Middle Village, Queens, and it was a crapshoot. But he loved it, and he was dedicated to it. And the thing I want to say is Ray, and Tom, you know this better than anyone, Ray is a great guy. He's a great guy. He's funny. He's loyal. He's a good friend. And he's really, I mean, I consider him my friend first. And the fact that we make a living together is way secondary.
Yeah. And I think people hope, you know, when you see on TV, you hope that the person is like the person you see on TV. Now, granted, Ray's done so many movies now and stuff, so it's all over the map. So you can't say, I hope it's like that character or this character. But you hope that you see this genuine guy in there as Raymond. You hope, oh, I hope he's not a bad guy. And
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's a great guy.
Yeah. And so we, obviously you and I know that, but you don't necessarily know that.
Well, I have no problem admitting to anyone who doesn't know him, which is the vast majority of the people, he's just a really sweet, very kind, very family-oriented guy. He's a guy, and I love him. We've been friends my whole adult life, it feels like.
Yeah. Well, for the most part, I would say that is definitely true. Yeah. So now let's go back. In that period of time, you manage Ray. He's getting noticed because in the clubs, there's nothing flashy about him. but he's phenomenal as a stand-up. And
You know, the thing that always amazed me is that now, with his fame, people don't know he's a stand-up. It's almost the thing that was his primary thing is now sort of secondary or tertiary when they talk about him. But the truth of the matter is, if you asked Ray Romano, what are you? He'll tell you he's a comedian.
yeah, a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And so his acting, his good acting has gotten in the way of what could have been a really good late comedy career.
If he's working yucks, I'm happy. Yeah, no, he is. First of all, the one thing about Ray, which I have come to learn over time, he makes very good decisions and very honest decisions. He's not a Pollyanna by any stretch. He really thinks it out. He reads a script. It doesn't matter what my opinion is, although it counts, and in his agent's opinion, it counts. But he has a method, and he's basically right 99% of the time.
Yeah, and there is nobody, you know, look at Tom Hanks' career. For every Oscar-winning performance, there's a movie that, why don't we not mention that in this interview?
Right.
And so,
yeah.
Yeah,
Ray
so that's
doesn't have that so much.
Yeah, so that's the high, and usually. So then let's go back. To get a sitcom, somebody has to give you something called a development deal, or you try and, because a lot of people watching are young actors. And, let me just clear this up for really quickly. You are not Andy Kindler, even
No,
though
I am not Andy Kindler, although my entire life people think he's me and I'm him. So I am him when it's convenient.
right, when it helps you.
When it works, I'm him.
Yeah, so Andy Kindler was an actor on our show. A lot of people wrote in, isn't that Andy, the friend Andy? It's not Andy. It's Rory. It's Rory. Yeah, your name.
I'm much better looking than Andy, and I'm thinner.
All right, I can't wait to have Andy on. So the goal, or not, some people are happy doing stand-up, period. Ray would have been happy doing stand-up, period. The reason you get into stand-up is not to get rich. If you're getting into stand-up to get rich, you will not survive.
Correct.
It's
you will not.
So just to paint the picture, there were times when Ray would do 9 shows a night.
That's correct.
9 shows.
Mortgage comic.
Yes, well, 9 shows a night, and maybe he would make, maybe he would walk home with $300 or something. It's, the improv paid.
By the way, $300 before taxes.
True. So the improv, just to give people an idea, when you did the improv in New York City, you would get paid $8 for a set.
Correct.
And yes, so that is not, I'm getting into it for the money. And Ray has this burning desire to do stand-up and to make people laugh. And even now, Rory, you must see it. People go, Tom, why is Ray still doing stand-up? He never has to work again in his life. It's like, well, let me explain. There are clubs in New York City which are showcase clubs where you'll go and do 10 minutes or 20 minutes. It's like going to the gym. A lot of guys will get on stage just to try out a new bit they wrote that afternoon, or a couple of angles of something, or a small change on a piece of material. But outside of New York, when you go to a comedy club in Ohio, you're a headliner. You're doing a show for an hour. And that's where you'll be paid. But even that, then, Ray was paid, $1,500 a week for 8 shows, or $1,750 or $2,000 we would celebrate for 8 shows during the week. And you literally could be in obscurity your whole life and work from club to club to club and be a working comedian, but never be famous and never be rich either. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, all right, we've painted that picture. You have a field in New York of hundreds of comedians. You're hoping to stand out, and if you can, get on a sitcom or do some type of acting things. Now, I'm going to, and I can say this now because Ray has an Emmy and he's worked with Mr. Scorsese, but Ray was not known as the best actor. Not that anybody was the best actor, but Ray was known as, they would see him kill in the clubs.
Correct.
And they would go, okay, he killed in the clubs. we should do something with him. And then maybe they go, well, I don't know what we do with him. Or he reads for a part and they go, well, no, thanks.
What a lot of people don't know is Ray was originally cast on news radio. He got the Joe Rogan role on news radio. And after one day of rehearsal, they fired him. And I had to tell him. I got a call from Paul Sims, who was the producer of the show. And he just said, he's not working for us. We're going to go in a different direction, which is their way of saying nicely, you're fired. And I always joke that that is the worst and best call I ever made in my life. Because if Ray had succeeded in that role,
yes,
he wouldn't have the career that he has now.
Right. He would have been on a show that some people go, I kind of remember news radio. I think so. As versus starring in.
That's correct.
Yeah. So now let's go to Letterman, because what I want to do is to save what little reputation I have. I do want to get to that story that I posted where Ray's wearing pants that have been cut off. Letterman's wearing pants. I don't want to go to that story yet, Rory.
All right. So okay. I'll tell you the story. So I was friendly with Barry Sand, who was then the producer of Letterman on Channel 4, on NBC. And I said to him, you got to see this guy. He's amazing. He's fantastic. You're going to love him. And Barry came to one of the clubs in New York, fell in love with him, which I'm honestly not surprised. And Ray got the show. But the way Ray got the show is kind of extraordinary, because he got the show, he did his set, and to this day, it's one of the best TV sets I've ever seen, ever. If there was a comedian and he wanted to know how to do it, I would just show him that reel, and that's it. That's how you do it. And when he came off the stage, Robert Morton, then one of the producers on the show, came running after me and said, Dave loved him. He thinks he's one of the most accessible comedians he's ever seen. And we were floating like above the ground, because he had killed. We had no designs really, although that's what we ultimately wanted, but there was no plan to go into another show. And then that Saturday, the week is over, Saturday, Rob Burnett, who was running Dave Letterman's company, Worldwide Pants at the time, called Ray directly at home. Ray's bit was he was in the backyard hosing the kids off the fence, which we've heard a million times. And they started talking, and Rob said, we have a development deal at the network. We'd love to talk about doing something with you. Are you open to it? And he says, nobody else is asking. I'm in. I'm there. And that's how it all started.
Yeah.
It was a dream come true, really.
And we should go back a little bit more. Ray did The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, which is a whole nother story. Yes. And nothing happened, meaning nothing happened in the world of development. I'm not saying nothing happened as in there weren't talks in this and it was great exposure. I'm just saying.
But there was something that happened, that he had done The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. This is before Jay had taken over, and it was at the end of Johnny's run. And, you know, Johnny was very peculiar the way he was. And you met him on the stage. You didn't meet him backstage. So Ray went on The Tonight Show. He killed. And we were in the dressing room afterwards celebrating. We were very happy as well he had done. And Johnny walked into the dressing room and said, well, you have to be happy with that. And Ray and I just stood there like we couldn't believe it. I mean, we were sitting, it was just us. It was Johnny and Ray and me for a few minutes in the dressing room. Again, another floating away moment, but that's what's happened.
Yeah. And that was, for people, The Tonight Show was the pinnacle at that time. And so with Carson, because you might not remember, Rory, but I was in the audience for the Carson appearance.
I do remember.
And I was there at Letterman for that first appearance. And for Carson, the Carson appearance, it was a dream come true. So you make that happen for Ray. So that's no small thing that he did Carson.
But I
only,
will, wait, but there is a little bit more to that. That after he had done Carson, and again, he killed on Carson, he really had a great shot. Ray was very sad after Carson because as a comedian, the goal was to do Carson. And now he had done Carson. So like the dream was fulfilled very early in his life. And he was like, sort of, well, what now? Where do I go from here? So it's funny when you think about it, when he was on Carson and he had done very well and he was sad about it.
yeah. Yeah, because it's this pinnacle. I mean, it's the goal. And very often when you do something creative, like when you finish a movie, even I read Spielberg, when he finished Jaws, couldn't have been more depressed and thought his career was over also. There's a creative letdown because there's so much energy going up to that moment. But I bring up Carson because now, fast forward, he does Letterman, which is now the pinnacle. Carson's off the air.
Carson was replaced by Jay Leno. So Jay Leno was on the West Coast and Carson was in the East Coast. And it was a battle for guests. And you very quickly decided you're either one or the other, but you couldn't do both.
Yeah, Letterman was on the East Coast. Yeah,
Tom Cruise could do. Letterman was on the East Coast. Leno was on the West Coast.
Yeah,
and like Tom Cruise could do both, but the average guy, especially working comedians, could not.
Yeah. So now, absolutely. So now, I think we've painted the picture, the stand-up scene, and usually you do stand. You know that's your credibility is instant. If you've done Carson and Letterman, instant credibility. And there are many.
It's not only credibility, because even if nothing ever happened for you, in those days when you would do Carson or Leno, even, it was a credit that sort of made you. Your money went up on the road. You could make more money. People wanted to work with you. You're either in the crowd or out of the crowd. So once you do the show, you're on the inside, and they pay a little bit of a premium for that.
Yeah, but absolutely. And there are many comedians who have, especially in the older days, 10, 20 Carsons. The average person has never heard of that person. Okay, so yeah, so this isn't a judgment. I'm just saying, there's a next level of getting on TV that's very, 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 very rare. There's maybe 10 in history who have started their own show. So the odds. So you could, as a stand-up, be so happy that you've done that would be it. I did Carson. Correct. When people say,
correct,
what kind of comedian?
Again, if you're a working comedian and you did Carson, basically it set you up. You were set up.
Yeah.
So very few comedians wanted to go, or even were lucky enough to go further, and Ray was one of them.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm reading a question. Let me see. How can you see the reel from that Letterman show? You can watch it on YouTube. Just search Ray Romano's first Letterman appearance. So now, Rory, you get what's known as a development deal, which means they're going to try and develop a show around this star. Now, already, I want to make it clear that there were hundreds of development deals handed out, and some of them at a point in time were for a crazy amount of money.
Well, there was a period of time where the networks paid crazy money,
and they would
battle each other.
Yeah,
they would literally, if someone wants to pay you $300,000 at ABC, they would either do defensive buying at NBC and pay more so ABC wouldn't have you, or they really wanted you, and that was the ultimate.
Yeah. So just because you have a development deal, because for every Ray Romano who's a star, there's hundreds of comedians that did Carson who you've never heard of. There are hundreds of people who made, by the way, if you were a stand-up comedy manager and you got your client a $300,000 development deal and nothing happened, you still changed their life. They're out of debt. They're doing this. So they're not a household name. Ray's development deal was not a lot of money, and it's a long shot. It's a very, very long shot that anything happens.
Correct.
So now,
well, let me explain this part. What had happened was that Letterman had this development deal at the network because it was their way of paying him additional money also on a different budget line. They could pay just so much for the host of a show, so they would take more money and pay him more money by giving him a development deal. But unlike guys who have development deals where nothing happens, Worldwide Pants and Dave Letterman had done Ed and had done shows that were successful. And everybody has to remember that at this point in time, Letterman was the man. He was the guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you did Letterman and he loved what you did and it was successful, you got the adulation from the guy. And Dave really liked Ray. So that started a wonderful relationship just on the show. Then when we went into the development deal with Worldwide Pants, everything started to happen.
Yeah, Worldwide Pants is Letterman's company.
Correct.
And so now in the short of it, how you did a development deal, I'm just going to cut to the chase.
Sure.
You have to find a writer, you have to find a studio, you have to put pieces together. So here's the right piece of which I cringed the first time I heard this, was when someone refers to, we need the right piece of talent,
Yeah.
for this project.
Yeah.
It sounds so horrible to hear, but they're looking, if you take emotions out of it, they're just like, okay, we have this writer, we have this studio, okay, we just need the right piece of talent to fit into there. And so you have to now go on a search for a writer, a studio,
Correct.
right? And you have to, and now, because what Rory's saying about Letterman is at CBS. And
Sure.
CBS wants to make David Letterman happy.
Correct.
And so all as we're telling this story, Rory, all these factors that when you're just watching a TV show, you go, oh, just assemble some funny people and let's make that show. But there are so many factors that are going on in that, okay.
Well, let's back up a little bit. What had happened was when we made the development deal with Worldwide Pants, it was just to come up with a script and an idea for Ray. It wasn't a guarantee we were on the air. We had a lot of steps to go through. And it's funny, I've told the story so many times. When we started meeting with the writers, for the people who have seen his name, he's sort of low profile, but Stu Smiley, who is one of the executive producers of the show, Ray, Stu Smiley, and myself met with many different writers. I think there were 10 total. Michael Borkow was one of them. He wrote for Friends, and we really wanted him in the worst way, and that didn't work out. And Stu, this is where Stu earned all his money. I'm absolutely convinced. If he never did another thing, Stu said, there's a writer I want you to meet. He's a writer on Coach. He's really good. He's the Jewish Ray. So we met at a diner in maybe Century City, I think. And we met all of these writers and all these people, and then came in Phil Rosenthal. And Phil started talking to Ray, and Ray started talking to Phil, and they started talking about their parents and experiences. And it really turned out that Phil really was the Jewish Ray. They hit it off wonderfully. Phil had never done a show on his own before, and we picked him. Him. We all loved him, and he ended up writing that script and becoming executive producer of the show.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that process, you're under a time crunch. So now you get a development deal. Mm-hmm. Every script has to be done by, let's say, in December or January, because I'm just telling.
Not anymore.
Yeah. You had to. So I'm just trying to condense the framework that you're working in. You have to find a writer. You get a development deal. You have to find a writer. You have 2 months to find the writer, write a script, turn it in, and then the network pours over 300 scripts.
Well, I was going to say, the network looks at a lot of scripts. I mean, a ton of scripts.
Yeah.
And they wrote a wonderful script.
Yeah.
Wonderful script.
Yes.
And go ahead.
And so then, of those, let's say 300 scripts, they're going to decide whether to shoot maybe 10 or 14. Of those 14, maybe 4 or 5 go on the air. So of those 14.
Tom, you should interview yourself.
Well, I'm just because it's so familiar to us and it's so unclear to people watching. So if they're betting for the most part $1 million on every pilot that they're going to shoot.
Correct.
And so then it comes down to a decision in May of what goes on the air.
All right, I'm going to take it from here. So we'll get into the casting of the pilot afterward. Let me get to this part. So when they write the script and they hand it to the network, Les Moonves says, okay, let's give this a shot. Let's give it a shot. So we shoot the pilot, and again, we'll talk about the cast afterward. And all the credit goes to Les Moonves, who said to us, I have one spot left on the schedule. It's Friday nights at 8:30. If you deliver a show as good as this pilot, I'm going to put you on. I will put you on. But if the pilot doesn't deliver, I can't help you. If the pilot does deliver, I'll move you to a better place, because Friday night at 8:30 was like a graveyard. It was the graveyard shift, but we were on the schedule.
Yeah. The last hit had been 25 years earlier.
Correct.
For CBS.
Correct.
So now
Also, the other thing that you have to remember is that CBS at that time was not known for sitcoms. It tended to skew older, and the programming was for older people. So it wasn't like ABC or NBC. It had a different demographic. So we had that against us, but it worked beautifully.
And also, because I want to tell this story another time, Rory.
Yes.
Okay. But CBS was ranked number 3. It was in the basement.
Yep.
NBC was Friends, Seinfeld. Yep. It was the king of all media, of all networks. And so the CBS was so in the basement that there was rumors that it was going to cease to exist as a network.
Right.
So they really needed a hit. They needed something. And so I want to, and now only because it's already, I knew this would happen, Rory.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I want to just go back to, because, well, let's finish the development process in that if you deliver on the pilot,
Correct.
Les says, I'll take a risk. I'll put you on the air with your unknown comedian, because we already have Cosby, Rhea Perlman, Ted Danson.
Well, let me tell you something. When we found out that the show was picked up, we were going to be on the air, Ray and I did a morning show tour of the United States. And we would go to all, Hello Cleveland and Good Morning Ohio. And we would go to all these places. They had no idea who I was. They had no idea who Ray was. We were like they fit us in, they were doing a favor.
But
it was crazy. But we had to do it to promote it and make noise about the show. So the one good thing about Ray was he rolled up his sleeves, as did I, and we were willing to do whatever it took to push the show down the pipe.
Right. And I think, absolutely. And I think it's to say that your guys are an underdog is, that this whole, the network's an underdog. This show is an underdog, and Ray is an unknown schmuck, and they have all these celebrities. So, and I'm just going to add a little fact. On the pilot itself, they didn't even spend the money they would on a real pilot. Nope. So they said, we'll throw a couple of bucks towards this unknown comedian.
Yeah, we'll see what we get.
We'll cut our losses. Yeah, we'll cut our losses. So we don't put it on the air. We didn't lose $1 million.
That's exactly true.
Yeah. Hello from Greece. Let me just scroll through these because I'm not ignoring, but hello from Greece. Yes. Hello, Greece. I'm curious where you watch the show in Greece. And there's one quick hello, Nicole, from an actress in London. Yes. Hello. Yes. She has a very specific question, which I have to repeat it because when we replay these, Rory, the questions go away. The comments go away. So do you think Ray would have had the career he's had up until now if he was his age, if he was the age he started today? I hope that question makes sense. I am asking due to huge development in technology. So I'm going to just cut to the chase on that, Rory.
Go ahead.
There's no way to tell. But the one thing that's different about technology is there is no such thing as a show that is watched on network television by 20, 30 million people. It
No.
does not happen.
Doesn't
and
exist.
so it doesn't exist. So when you get a YouTube star that gets 4 million views, 5 million views, that's huge.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a big deal because
Right.
now a hit TV show is 2 million viewers.
And they're celebrating.
Yes,
In our day, if you had 2 million viewers, you were off the air.
They would pull your show.
Yeah.
They would pull your show that moment because they'd
That's
say
right.
we have to get rid of this embarrassment because we would get 19, 20 million viewers. So the flip side is everybody can go on. So if Ray existed right now and he's 28, he could be putting up videos on YouTube and getting a following. But the ability to get the country.
But understand something, that there are literally stars who you don't know and I don't know who've got huge followings who are on the internet.
Absolutely.
They're not on network television. In fact, my two kids, given their druthers, watch TV on their computers.
Sure. Well, when you're an old codger like us, Rory, the thought
Like
of
you.
watching
Like you.
the thought of watching on TV,
Yeah.
thought of watching TV on your laptop is like, I've worked so hard in my life to watch a big TV. I'm not watching it on my computer. And they sit there and go, well, why do I want to sit
They want to
in front
watch
of...
on the iPhone. Yeah.
Yes.
That's
And so-
exactly it.
Right. Okay.
When we were younger, you couldn't have a pimple. Now you can. No one can see it.
And I want to just say that in answering Nicole, it's hard to tell, but really the one thing that, and Ray and I have talked about it, I don't know that you can become a colossal. The one thing in history that will give you perpetual awareness by the public is a hit sitcom in reruns. There's no other vehicle.
Well,
that
it changes your life. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there is no other vehicle. And we have it now, a situation where Everybody Loves Raymond is on TV land. And we just made a deal for it to be on the Peacock network, which is owned by NBC, by the way.
bizarre.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's not on the CBS stream. It's on the NBC stream.
Yeah.
So go figure.
Yes. And the things are changing so much that it's hard to keep track.
And very quickly. I mean, I always said that I go home from work on Friday and I know the business. And then some 16-year-old kid invents something on Saturday. And on Monday, it's a whole new game. You got to start all over again.
Yeah. And I think just to separate so you don't go crazy, whatever gets eyeballs, whatever gets attention is where the money goes.
Correct.
So if you invented the billboard in 1935 when the car was just starting to take off, you are the king. I can get the word out. You want to sell some Pepsi? I have billboards.
Right, but let me say something, that it's show business. It's very much a business. It's a dollars and cents business. Tom, you and I, we handle most of our stuff on the creative side, but everything for the network is how many eyeballs do we deliver, and will we be able to sell Pepsi X number of eyeballs, and they'll pay X number of dollars per pair of eyeballs. That's how it is.
Right.
It's almost that creativity is secondary.
Yes.
If people like it. That's why you see things on TV that are garbage, and they last forever because people are watching it. And if they watch it, that's right. They're not making a creative decision. They're making a business decision.
Yeah, and they are a business. So if you want to do your pure art, go do a play where you control. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying
no, it's
there's
not a criticism.
balance.
It's reality.
Yeah, there's a balance.
It is. Yeah.
So when you sit there and go, I'm gifted and I'm giving my heart, and then an executive goes, okay, great, I have to pay rent and I have to pay for a network.
Exactly right.
All right, so a few. Let me just scroll through some of the questions. Okay. We love Brian Regan. Please talk about him. Signed, Brian Regan. So, let me just scroll through. TV Land has a great Raymond marathon. My son and I watch it on every night. That's great. I love this. What was the hit show CBS had 25 years earlier? It was Gomer Pyle was the hit show. Gomer Pyle. Yeah. And what's that?
It had MASH.
Well, MASH was not Friday night though. Friday night at 8:30 was the thing. Yeah. Yes, Ray hates social media. Someone's writing that is true. Let me see. Didn't they have no okay? So Ray.
I'll tell you a little tidbit. Ray does not have a website. He does not have any social media whatsoever. He is the most technically least savvy guy that we know, and he's happy. He's happy that way.
So Rory, I'm just going to say, since you brought it up, people keep saying, why doesn't Ray come on here? Why doesn't Ray come on here? And I said, Ray will do it. I mean, I see Ray all the time. Ray will do it. He has no problem. But I have to sit him down with his son and figure a time. So it's not, people have a tough time understanding that Ray, as much as we scroll through Instagram and we're doing this, that doesn't happen in Ray's life.
Ray plays golf. He loves football. He adores his kids. He adores his wife, Anna. It's almost as if he loves show business. It's like how I am also. Show business is what you do. It's not what you are.
Yeah.
And there are other parts of Ray's life that he enjoys. So he doesn't scroll through social media, and he doesn't spend hours and hours looking himself up online. He hates it, and he doesn't subject himself to it.
Well, and that's another thing about creative. When you go online and read stuff about yourself, people are vicious, and people are nice.
They hide behind. Right.
People are nice, and people are vicious.
Yes.
And so if you're not thick-skinned, and I talked about this, I can't remember who, I was talking to somebody about it, and you're putting yourself out there. And when someone sits anonymously and writes, "You're the ugliest person I've ever seen on the internet," you can't take that to heart. But if you're a sensitive person,
usually it's a guy in his mother's basement who's 46 years old and he's walking the dog with a post under his arm.
Well,
they hide very often. Social media trolls hide behind social media. It's one of the last bastions where you can disguise yourself. But as you point out, you have to have a thick skin because, it's easy for me to talk about Ray or for you to talk about Ray, but Ray is Ray. So when he's reading a comment, he's reading a comment about himself, and it hurts.
Yeah, it hurts. So now, Rory.
Yes.
We're up to the point where you have to deliver a good pilot. And I'm going to put a pin in that, okay? The pilot gets shot. We're going to go back because I got to explain why I'm not wearing normal pants, okay? So now I'm going to make this quick and then you fill in.
Okay.
Ray's doing Letterman. It's his first time ever. Yes. Ray is a starter comedian, right?
I'll take it from here. I know exactly what you're saying.
Well, you got to tell.
I know exactly where you are. So when Ray did Letterman for the very first time, the guest that night was Mel Gibson. And as a bit, an offhanded bit, Mel cut his pants and made sure, Dave cut Mel's pants and made shorts. And Dave, who is really a good sport, he really is a good sport, he cut his own pants and made shorts. And Ray hadn't gone on yet. And they laughed and they kidded, whatever. And it was Ray's turn. And Ray and I were backstage. And we literally, I'm a grown man, and we actually had a conversation. Should we cut your pants? Should they introduce you and you come out with pants cut? And Ray, all the credit to Ray, made the wise decision. I'll never forget this. He said, I'm not going to do it because if I do it, it's like I'm in the club. And I don't want to be I'm not in the club, and I don't want to pretend I'm in the club. So Ray just went out and he killed. Now you want me to take it to the last?
No, I want to go back to that dress because I was in the dressing room with you.
Yes.
And there's an intense moment because next time you're on, I want to talk about Ray's joke on Carson that almost didn't live, okay? So I just want to slow it down. You're in a little dressing room. You're watching a monitor. Mel cuts the pants. Dave, now they're watching these two guys.
Yep.
Do I come out with my pants cut?
Yep.
And there was a writer that Bill Sheff was on the show. I think you called him up and said, well, so all this decision making is
by the way,
this 6 minutes.
Spur of the moment in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like the call of your life.
Yeah. All right, Paul.
The crazy thing is, if Ray had gone out, now I'm older and I'm smarter and I'm not under the gun. If Ray had gone out with his pants cut, he may have never had that deal with Letterman. Letterman could have thought it was the stupidest thing he's ever seen. He could have laughed, but he could have thought it was the stupidest thing he ever seen. And I'm booking Ray in Rochester on next week. You know?
Yes, and I'm talking to you because I'm going, Rory, where would you like to go today? Oh, Tom, you're driving for Uber now? Yes, Uber, but Lyft also. Don't limit me to Uber. So in that split second, what Ray thought, what you said exactly is, if he does come out and he gets a huge laugh also with his pants cut, maybe he can't follow that big laugh.
His own material wouldn't follow the sight gag of him coming out with cut pants.
Right. So for Ray's, so then cut to.
But let me say that goes back to my instinct. The instinct Ray has, it's phenomenal. Honestly, he just has a sense of things. He tends to see things 3 and 4 moves forward. He plays them out in his head, and he was right.
Yeah. So now it turns out it worked out okay. Ray gets on the air, becomes a giant star. Now he's going to do his last show to promote the last episode of Everybody Loves Raymond. And so cut to, he's in. So now the last show of Everybody Loves Raymond is May 16th, 2005. There is so much press planned. They're going to go to the stock market. They got to go to the museum. It's endless publicity.
Correct.
And I say this for this reason. Ray decides, there's Rory. Ray goes, I'm going to go on to the show.
That's not.
Well, go ahead, Rory.
All right. So Ray is doing the last show with David Letterman. For his, Raymond is over. It's ended, and is the last Letterman under the Raymond regime.
Yeah, under the Raymond regime, 2005.
Tom, let me talk. Under the Raymond regime, it's the last show, and Ray tells the story of his first appearance on Letterman and how he was going to cut the pants. He didn't cut the pants, and Ray cut the legs of his pants off to sort of bookend his appearances on Letterman through Raymond. And I will tell you something that's funny. I'm a collector of stuff. I collect things. I have one leg and the tie. He cut his tie in half, and he cut both legs off. And the reason I only have one leg is when Ray went out after the show, out the stage door, there was a huge crowd there, and Ray's very good about taking pictures and signing autographs and whatever. And he threw one pant leg in the crowd. And I said, do not throw that other pant leg in the crowd. And I still have it.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I have pictures of that, and I posted pictures. My phone died, but I will fire it up and show the pictures. So he does that. He cuts it, and he says to Dave kind of what you and I just talked about. He says, Dave, and he goes through the whole iteration. Correct. And Dave said, I think you would have been fine, Ray, had you cut your pants 9 years ago.
Yeah, that's easy to say 9 years after a smash hit.
That's right. So we'll never know if it would have changed it. But we are in now Ray now has to do what I said before, a ton of press. He has to go right to, I think it was the Museum of Television or something, with the whole cast.
Correct.
And Ray goes, I can't. So now everybody in the studio was laughing. This is great. But now he has to walk out into public. Nobody knows what happened. All he is a crazy guy with cut off pants.
With pants cut off, right. And
so he turns to me and he says, give me your pants. Give me your pants. And so I reluctantly gave him my pants. And now I have to look like the mental patient who's walking around in a suit and tie.
Uh-huh. And cut pants. Yeah.
And I have to walk down the street, and I'm not famous. Nobody knows me. There's Ray Romano, followed by a crazy guy.
But it's New York. You can get away with anything.
That's just a Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's just a Wednesday in New York.
Typical Wednesday.
Yeah. But I just wanted to clarify that story. That's how that all came about.
Yeah. And those are the pictures. We're in the hallway, and I was getting a biggest kick out of it. I don't know, you get so caught up in the moment of doing it, you don't think about, I have to get on the elevator, Yeah.
You don't think about after.
But
You don't think
again,
about
that
it.
goes back to Ray being he's a great sport, so makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And I was a great sport for giving me my pants, Rory. I think, yeah.
You were.
That was very nice of me. So now, Rory, only because, oh, look, we have 5 minutes left.
Yes.
So now
Go
you have to,
Spain.
yeah, so you have to come back. So we're going to keep talking, but when you come back, I want to talk about someone else who did Letterman, who got a development deal. I want to talk about the casting of the show and that when you were starting to hear the news. But
Yeah.
now I want to just to finish the story. Les Moonves says, if you make a good pilot, I can help you out.
Well, let me tell you what happened. We got a couple of seconds here. When the pilot was made, Les, in those days on videotape, he took the cassettes home. And Les told me, for whatever reason, he watched the pilot with his family, which he doesn't do that. They loved it. They loved it. They loved it. They laughed. And it was one of those, come on, Dad, you got to give it a shot, whatever. And that was how it all started. Like I always, there's a million things you can think about. Les doesn't take it home. Les watches the pilot and the phone rings. He took it home. He watched it with his family, which was the perfect audience for the show. Perfect.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
And can I tell you, when that's such a perfect setting because it's such a family-friendly show.
Yes.
And at that point, Seinfeld was the king of shows, and Seinfeld was zero family-friendly.
Zero.
And I bow
Nothing
down to
relatable
Seinfeld.
for a family.
Nothing relatable.
The thing about Raymond, and the reason Raymond still is funny today, because a lot of people didn't watch Raymond first run on CBS. They found Raymond on TV Land. So the interesting thing is, and we'll talk about more the next time, that everybody has a brother or a sister, or everybody has parents like that. The crux of that show is about the family. After the first season or so, we never went to Ray's office. It was about the family and the dynamic of all of them. And they drove each other crazy, but nothing comes in between family. And
Right.
that's why the show to this day doesn't date itself, because your family, everybody's watching their family, is just like that family.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about that, Rory, is when I make comments on here, Seinfeld does not play well around the world. Raymond plays well around the world because they don't have the I was shocked by this because even Ray, the first season of Raymond, Ray and I were like, oh man, Seinfeld is so cool. It's such a cool, and Friends is just like, and so the relatability as, let's say, not as cool as Seinfeld, the worldwide relatability is huge. So I can't.
But the funny thing is, if you watch Seinfeld, which is a terrific show,
yeah,
but it dates itself. There's nothing in Raymond that dates it.
Yeah.
It's kind of pretty extraordinary if you think about it.
Yeah, in some ways. And I think people know who have watched me on this. I've been reading a lot about I Love Lucy and Desi Arnaz and that whole thing.
Same thing.
Yeah, and it's such a timeless thing. And there was one show I saw where they referenced like the Secretary of the Treasury or something like that. And I'm like, oh, that's not funny to me. I don't know who they're talking about.
My son doesn't know who George Steinbrenner is. Think about that.
Well,
we don't have that in Raymond.
This almost comes to the theory of writing. At what level of fame can you forever make that reference? Because right now there are people in Greece who go, I don't know who Steinbrenner is.
That's right.
And if, well, just know in Greece, if you were a Yankee fan, you'd be angry at him. Right. Yeah, you'd know Steinbrenner.
Yeah.
We're watching ELR in Kazakhstan. Okay, hello Kazakhstan. Yes, loved ELR, gives you so many laughs out loud. We all need in our lives. Never saw one Seinfeld or Friends, Teresa. Okay.
Well, Teresa, you should see one. See one as a point of reference.
Yeah. Yes. It is great that it did not. This is hello Nicole, an actress in England. It is great that it did not revolve only around Raymond. The dynamics and the cast chemistry made it interesting to watch.
We'll get to that the next show.
Yeah. So Rory. Is there, but only because there's nothing going on, there's nothing, in the stand-up world right now, the stand-up world, live entertainment has taken a real punch.
Yes,
right?
Very much so.
Yes. And so for you, because when you let's say you come back in December or something, we'll figure it out. But for you, your life now with stand-up comedy having taken that hit, do you see for people watching, do you see that a change coming or?
Well, stand-up comedy took a little bit of a hit. I mean, Brian Regan, we talked about. Brian's been touring. He's been touring. We just shot a Netflix special 2 weeks ago, a new Netflix special. So he's been working. I think the bigger visibility guys are working. The guys who are hurting are the working comedians, the unknown guys, and they're all great and they're all funny and they're a discovery away, many of them, but they're the guys who are hurting the worst.
Yeah. And so, sorry, yeah, it's tough. It's an unprecedented time in history, obviously, for live entertainment. Just because Teresa is one of our biggest fans, and she's asking, was Rory in The Prodigal Son in the pew?
I probably was. I was in a whole bunch of episodes. I don't even remember. My wife, Wendy, was in. My daughter, Danielle, was in.
T-Ball.
Ryan was little, so he wasn't in.
Well, T-Ball, the T-Ball episode, I think I have a picture of you.
I have her uniform from T-Ball.
What other props, Roy? We need to next time. Next time we're going to talk about props.
Here's the thing: if they, it's a cheap plug, but if they go to my Instagram page, there's a load of photographs from Raymond. A lot of behind, backstage stuff. Tom, you took a ton of them.
Yes,
and I think they'd enjoy it. So Tom will give you the address and you can take. If you just click on Rory, it's in the homepage. Someone wrote, I was watching it from Venezuela and felt so related and laughed so hard with every single episode. And guess what? Now I am 40 years old, mother of 2 boys, and feeling like Marie Barone. Yeah.
I think that speaks
well. You
well.
have to understand something. You start out as Ray and you end up as Peter Boyle, right? So that's what happens, and that's the evolution of life.
Yeah. Rory, I knew this was going to happen. It was going to be too enjoyable and too quick. So the next time, because I'll ping you, I want to tell the story I want to go back and tell a little bit about Carson. I want to go back and talk about the network moments when the show was number 85 in the ratings and Les said to you, okay, here's what I'm going to try, okay? Because Ray and I were sharing a place the first season, and you called up. And somewhere I have a videotape of us talking, or Ray talking to you, and you saying, okay, listen. Because in hindsight, where you're sitting now, it's like, oh, yeah, of course, the show's a hit. But then it was, okay, we're going to give you 6 episodes. Okay, we're going to give you 3 more.
Listen,
okay,
let me say this. Let me say this. When we were looking to launch Raymond, I didn't have anything. Ray didn't have anything. We were young guys. We were clawing and fighting our way. My life, Ray's life, certainly was changed by Raymond. Tom, your life was changed by Raymond, and to a certain degree, it was defined by Raymond too. I'm very proud of that show. I'm very proud of that show. I like it. It was like going to camp. The people were great. There were no problems. All the writers went home at 6 o'clock. Everything about that show wasn't normal. Nobody quit. Everybody worked there forever. It was it was great. It really was.
And I think all the stuff you do, because I know we mentioned Brian Regan, we mentioned Robert Klein. These are giant, amazing and people, and
Green.
and so. Oh, absolutely. But there's something, and the more I read and the more I do any historical references, when you get that iconic hit show, it's so rare. It's such rarefied air. And you really, really, have to be grateful of all of those, all of those moments, all of those memories.
The funny thing is, and it sounds so corny, and I know you have to go, right? Okay. The show won 2 Emmys as best sitcom show. I'm years later, I'm incredibly proud of those. Incredibly proud of those. Look, it was great to win one and wonder what it would be like to win one, but also what it stands for. It stands for excellence, and to be associated with excellence in any capacity is always a fantastic place to be.
Yeah, the pinnacle of, and you're bringing great joy to people. You're not. It's not the best dentist in Long Island.
Right,
Nothing
right.
that there's
I
not that
went
there's
to a
anything wrong with that.
proctologist that I want to recommend. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rory. I'll reach out to you. My
Sure.
people will contact you again,
Yeah.
and I we'll figure out some of the stories and we'll slow them down because I'm getting a lot of hearts. I hope Danielle is watching and I hope Ryan is watching. I don't know if they take interest in your life anymore,
They're
but
my biggest fans. Yeah. I have 3 big fans. My wife, Wendy, my daughter, Danielle, my son, Ryan. They're my biggest fans.
and I will say in closing, because you flew out every week from New York, you are a million mile. What is your status as
I flew out Wednesday to Friday. For in the beginning, Monday to Wednesday, then Wednesday to Friday. I flew 26 weeks of the year for 9 years. My head glows in the dark. And I had on American 2 million miles, and I don't even know on the other airlines.
So does that make you platinum? I was just trying to make
Let me tell you something. When you're single, you fly first class for free forever. When you have 4 people in your family, not so fast.
Oh. All right. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, Rory, I'll see you next time.
Yes.
We'll have a couple of specific stories in mind, and then we'll answer some questions.
Hold on. Can I say something?
Fire away, Rory.
Okay. I don't know if a lot of people realize how important Tom was to the process. Tom, don't say a word.
Yes. You should open with that. You should open with that, Rory.
I'll open with it again. In the very beginning of the show, Ray was scared to death. I was scared to death. It was all new. It's not as if we were experts in the area. We were learning as we went along. Ray brought Tom on not only as a wonderful writer and to help him break stories and ideas, but what Tom represented for Ray, he was his friend. And at that time, to have somebody by your side that you could kind of lean on and not feel so much by yourself is a lot of the reason why Ray acclimated himself very quickly, or more quick, to the show. I mean, Tom was always there, always had his cameras. He was a wonderful writer, and scripts he wrote and broke stories. He was in the writer's room, and he was Ray's best friend there.
Yeah, and I think I appreciate you saying that, Rory. And I think in general, when you have anybody, because Ray is so unbelievably talented, and you look at
understated.
Yeah,
like pulling teeth to get a story out of him. He doesn't
yes,
brag.
But, no, he doesn't brag. But I think in general, in any skill set in life, you have the world's greatest tennis player, and you think that guy needs a coach. You have the greatest hitter. That guy needs a coach.
Pavarotti
Yeah,
worked
and
with
so
a coach every single day.
Right, and so you look at that, and that's why I think in doing these conversations, and it's a good note to end on, that's why I go, okay, it's 130 people to make the show. If you have a really bad wardrobe department, it adds it's one element removed.
It was big plus. Yep.
Yes, and so it's very much, and I say this, it's like the space program where there's 3 astronauts going to the moon, but there's 15,000 people behind there going, okay, let me do my job well.
And by the way, in fairness, 15,000 people, you don't know who they are. They're not famous, but they're integral to it being successful.
Yeah.
So everybody loves Raymond. Of course, everybody knows who starred in it and who was in it and who wrote it. But there were a lot of people in the background who made the show what it was. It was an unbelievable family. Everybody was close, and everybody was treated the same.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. All right, Rory, perfect ending statement. You'll hear from my lawyers, obviously, and they'll figure everything out.
You'll hear from my lawyers.
Okay. All right. Always a pleasure, and I'll see you. Yeah, I'll see you in a few weeks. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
And
thanks.
I'll talk to you soon, Rory.
All right. Bye-bye.